Today we are going to discuss one psychiatrist, Laing. He did bring out certain amazing facts about the way self is formed. We know that everyone has the self, but how those contents are formed and how certain process can lead to disruption of self. These things are brought out by Laing. You can say these are dynamics of self-construction. So here he focuses on certain pathological forms of self-construction. Take for example a child and how self is formed. We're discussing how things can go wrong. Say when a child does something and positively rewarded, then he feels happy. Next time he wants to do that, punished, he feels unhappy. He wants to avoid that. But suppose you have a situation where close relations like parents don't recognize the child and what he wants to do, but rather force him to do some other things. Suppose a child is in such an interaction with the close people. Then when the child gives his own responses and doesn't get what he wants and learns that certain false responses will get him get along in the family, then he will keep of real thing outside him, and then he will try to do things from the viewpoint of others, not from his viewpoint. In language of Laing, the child constructs false self. Self is a process of construction. Child constructs false self. And with this he interacts. So his real feelings are something and what he is projecting are something else. So what the consequences of this action is that because he is interacting with his false self and not with the true self doesn't learn, because you learn only when you express yourself, behave as per your feelings, and then get hurt and then you modify. So true self, unexpressed, unlearned, tends to be small. Dasif, big. So a child may come to think that he is not himself. See, even we all lie, we all say certain false things, we give images. But then, as long as these are some modifications to true self, there is no danger. But if it is something more than that, where false self is created, and then what happens is, child comes to think that this is not me. What I am doing is not me, because that's not him. And this soon gets translated into the world unreal. Because it is with his reference, the world is indeed unreal. He is not himself, and so he tends to look at, so something like true self keeps looking at false self in a helpless way. So one becomes a kind of an actor. One becomes an image of oneself, or image of oneself, as put by someone. So the world is unreal. So when the world is unreal, some complain about being unembodied. So they get to think that they are not themselves. So such a feeling, unreality, that they even perceive their body as somebody else's, unembodied takes place. Feeling unreality. And then this leads to some other complications. So that feeling of unreality is called something like derealization. Which is reported among many children. But if things go worse, it can complicate further. See, this boy or this child created one false self in one particular situation. But in another particular situation, he can create another false self, SF1, like this SF2. So he can create certain false selves when the true self is down. So body is occupied by SF1 for some time, and then SF1 leaves, and SF2 for some time. Okay. Because you get into many false selves, because true self is not nourished. Okay. All these are the complications when the child doesn't know how to express himself, how to stick to himself, and how to deal with the world according to his terms. Surely a result of lot of violence, and Laing looked at this violence in the context of family, and more particularly in the name of love. Because love is a withdrawing of love and giving of love is a powerful sanction system. Powerful sanction system. So more than material incentives, giving love and withdrawal of love can influence a child more severely, and if that influence is negative, it leads to these consequences. This is a case of divided self. Self is divided, true and many false selves. So what is the solution? The solution is to get back to authenticity. So weaken the false selves and move the person towards authentic expression. Removal of the falsehood. He should behave authentically, and the people around him should encourage that authenticity. And step by step, one will recover himself. These are all important. Socrates talks about self-knowledge, and some Indian philosophers talked about enlightenment beyond self. But I think those processes first assume that there should be healthy self. And self-assaulted beyond its tolerance limit leads to these complications. So it is very important why parents should encourage authentic responses, and more importantly, try to figure out what the child truly thinks is his.